Hey guys, it's Tixie here and welcome back to the channel. So, as I mentioned in my Grav video the other day, it is getting harder with each week that passes to record content here on Black Ops Cold War, right? I absolutely love the game to bits, but, you know, it's going to be 4 years old in a couple of months, and it's just starting to show sometimes in a few of the lobbies. If you're doing well, people leave. Like, it can just be quite difficult sometimes to get anything going. So today, we're going to be having a little bit of fun, and I'm going to be ranking all 21 score streaks in Cold War from worst to best. Now, very quickly before we get into it, the score streak system in Cold War was very controversial, and I myself am not the biggest fan of it. Basically, it was done on a score basis, which kind of worked off a multiplier based on the amount of kills you got in a row, but it did not reset when you died. So basically, throughout the game, even if you weren't doing that well, as long as you were getting 1 or 2 kills from time to time, you would eventually probably work to your score streaks. And just generally, it made some of the games a little bit unenjoyable towards the end, because if you've been playing for quite some time and everyone had streaks, there was just a bit of an overload at the end of the game. So ranking these streaks, I've very much just based it on 1, how good is the score streak, 2, how much score did that streak require, thirdly, what was the cooldown period. So basically, because of the way the multiplier bonus worked, once you got a streak, there was then a cooldown period of how long until you could work back towards that streak again. And then also a little bit of a selfishness on top of how much I used the streak myself. So at 21, and the worst score streak in Cold War in my opinion was the flamethrower. So I'm going to be honest, I don't think I ever really used the flamethrower, right? And it's quite similar for a few of the score streaks at the bottom of this list. It was a score of 1500, it had a 90-second cooldown period, but I just don't think the flamethrower was ever that great, and that is why it's at 21. At number 20, we've got the combat bow, which was 500 score, but had a cooldown of 120 seconds. Again, a very, very low streak. It really, you could get a kill or two with it, but you had to be quite accurate. I know once before I kind of moaned about this streak and somebody said, well, I love the combat bow. I do apologise if you're one of those people, but for me, it's the combat bow at 20. At 19, we've got armour. So armour was a score of 1600 with a cooldown period of 60 seconds, and it was just never really that great, to be honest. If you put the armour on, if people got a couple of bullets on you, that was soon gone. It didn't really give you that much extra health, and in the end, I just don't think it was really worth using, so it's the armour at 19. At 18, we've got the counter spy plane, which had a score of 1400 and a cooldown of 90 seconds. The counter spy plane is, you know, always a half decent streak, but I never think it's as good as its counterpart, the spy plane. And obviously with the jammer being a field upgrade in Cold War, the jammer worked just as well as the counter spy plane, and if you could find a decent place on the map to put it, it would last longer than the counter spy plane. So I don't think many people really ran it, and for me, the counter spy plane only good enough for 18. At 17, we've got the care package. So this was a score of 2000 with a cooldown period of 90 seconds. Not much to say about the care package. It's always a fun kill streak or score streak whenever they use it, and sometimes, you know, you can get something really, really good out of it, and it'd be quite nice if you haven't got that many kills and you get like a gunship or something out of your care package. But for me, not really a streak that I use that often, so the care package at 17. At 16, we've got the death machine, which was a score of 2200 and cooldown period of 90 seconds. Now, I'll be totally honest, again, the death machine, I just didn't really use it that often. I felt like it could be quite powerful in certain areas, in certain aspects, especially if you've got 3 or 4 players who lined up in a row, but I just didn't really use it. Did it count towards nukes? I'm not 100% sure. Let me know down in the comment section if you know, but it's the death machine at 16. So at 15, we've got the R6D, 800 score, cooldown of 90 seconds. I think the R6D, you can almost always guarantee yourself a kill with that, right? And it's always a really fun streak to use. Very iconic, quite nostalgic, you know, from when it was first in Black Ops 1. And for me, that's why it was a little bit higher than a few of the others. And obviously, like I say, 800 score, didn't take much to get, and you'll almost always guarantee yourself a kill. At 14, we've got the napalm strike, which was a score of 2500 with a cooldown period of 30 seconds. So it's actually quite a short cooldown period for a streak like the napalm. And again, the napalm, you know, it's quite nostalgic, right? I remember when it was in Black Ops 1, it was always quite a decent streak. Again, I just don't think I used it that often here in Cold War, and I think with the napalm, you have to perfect it, right? You have to call it in at the exact right time. I think in something like 12v12, it can be really, like, you know, helpful because there's a lot of players on the map. But in 6v6, more often than not, I think you can use the napalm and not get anything out of it. At 13, we've got the attack helicopter, which was a score of 3800 and a cooldown period of 60 seconds. The attack helicopter in Cold War, probably one of the better attack helicopters. I feel like over the years, the attack helicopter has been one of the worst streaks in some of the games, specifically when you're talking about aerial streaks. It normally doesn't do that much and can be taken out quite easily. I think the attack helicopter itself on Cold War, it took a few more bullets. You couldn't just shoot it down like really quickly, and it would get you some kills, but 3,800 score was quite a bit and not as good as some of the streaks in and around it. So at number 12, we've got the sentry gun, which was a score of 1,800, cooldown period of 60 seconds. The sentry gun was actually really, really good in Black Ops Cold War. Specifically, I've seen people spawn trapping in Demolition using it, and if you could get a sentry gun in a really good place, they could be really, really deadly. The only problem was they were incredibly easy to take out. Like one Semtex would destroy a sentry gun, or one melee would destroy a sentry gun. So it's quite a low score and quite good for what it is, but quite easy to get taken out. I guess that's kind of how they balance it. So the sentry gun at 12. So coming in at number 11 is the gunship. So the gunship was the highest score streak in Black Ops Cold War and had a cooldown period of 90 seconds. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, Teeks, the gunship, surely that must be one of the best streaks in the game. And I mean, I haven't used it that often. It's more like an AC-130 from like the Infinity Ward series. That's what I would compare the gunship in Cold War to. And of course, it was very good. But the biggest problem with the gunship was 10,000 score was quite a lot of score to get. But also, with the air patrol, being able to take a gunship out just like that, I just don't think many people went for the gunship. I just don't think it was worth going for all that score, and then you call it in and it gets taken out by an air patrol, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the video. But yeah, the gunship is obviously incredibly good, but I just feel like it would have been used a lot more in this game if it wasn't for the air patrol. Same at number 10, we've got the chopper gunner. So this was a score of 8,000. The chopper gunner was you know, like the Black Ops 1 chopper gunner, 2,000 score less than the gunship, so a little bit easier to get, and also had a 60-second cooldown period. Again, the problem with the chopper gunner was it would get taken out by air patrols, and although it was very, very good if you managed to get a lobby where, you know, there was no air patrols, the other element you have with these aerial streaks is spawn protection, right? So people do have spawn protection for a few seconds when they spawn in from these streaks, which again is another negative of them because it allows people more often than not to get to cover. So the chopper gunner only at number 10. Same again at number 9, the VTOL escorts had a score of 6,200, and the VTOL escort was like the gunship from Black Ops 1. You could hover it wherever you wanted, and it was incredibly good, right? You would absolutely destroy players. It had a cooldown period of 90 seconds, and as I said, with it being a 6,200 score, it was a little bit easier to get to. But again, spawn protection caused problems with this streak, and the air patrol. And the problem with the VTOL, the chopper gunner, and the gunship was that you could have your own air patrol, but if you called your air patrol in and then called in one of these streaks and then someone else calls their air patrol in, it destroys your streak, right? So the only way to protect your streak is to be the second air patrol that gets called in. But the problem is, once you call a gunship, a chopper gunner, or a VTOL in, you can't call in the air patrol if you've got one, because you're in that streak actively using it. So that was why there was just no good way of going about it with these streaks. They would just get taken out more often than not, especially nowadays. Everyone knows how good the air patrol is, so the VTOL in at 9. And number 8, we've got the cruise missile, score of 3,500, cooldown period of 90 seconds. The cruise missile is really good, right, isn't it? Very similar to a Predator missile, but you get a few extra rockets. And I think with a score of 3,500, a lot easier to get to, and more often than not, you can guarantee yourself a kill with it, because there's no way of anyone stopping you using it. It's just if you miss is the only way you wouldn't get a kill. At 7, we've got the artillery, again, very similar to the cruise missile, score of 3,000, cooldown period of 30 seconds, so it had a better score and a quicker cooldown period. And again, you can almost always guarantee yourself some kills with the artillery. A little bit more luck in it than the cruise missile, because you have to kind of pinpoint an area and hope you get good timing. In 12v12 on Nuketown, it would go crazy, and it's the artillery at 7. So number 6, we've got the spy plane, score of 1,000, cooldown period of 90 seconds. Spy planes and UAVs, they are what they are, right? They're very, very useful. They speed the game up. They help to get people moving around the map. And I think with such a low score, they're always very powerful. I think they impact the game very well. And like I say, you know, people can take them out quite easily, but more often than not, no one can really be bothered to take a spy plane or a UAV out. Of course, if someone's got Ghost on, it doesn't work unless they're sat in a corner. But I think the spy plane at 6, a very powerful streak, really impacts the game. And yeah, that's why it's at 6. So breaking into the top 5, we've got the strafe run, which was a score of 5,000, cooldown period of 30 seconds. So 5,000 score was not too bad to get to, and the cooldown period of 30 seconds was actually really decent. And the good thing with the strafe run was, because you didn't control it manually, you could protect it with your own air patrol, so they didn't get taken out quite so easily like the VTOL, the chopper, and the gunship. And the other good thing is the strafe runs were a good way of securing wins, specifically in Demolition, where there's one bomb in overtime. I don't agree with one bomb in overtime, but the strafe one was very, very powerful in that mode and could more often than not really change games, which at the end of the day is what you want from your score streaks. So at number 4, we've got the Air Patrol, which was a score of 2,400 and it had absolutely no cooldown. Now, I absolutely hate the Air Patrol, but for what it does, it is incredibly powerful. Like, you could maybe argue that this is the most powerful score streak in Cold War, right? It has changed the way that Cold War plays now. Almost anybody, I would say, who's playing Cold War now, if you kind of know what you're doing, you're running the Air Patrol, more often than not just to protect your own streaks. But basically, guys, the Air Patrol would take anything out, right? If you have an Air Patrol and nobody on the other team has one, you can take out a strafe run, a Veto, a chopper, a gunship, an attack helicopter. Like, literally, it will take anything out, and all you have to do is call it in. You don't even have to do anything with it. It just automatically does it. 2,400 score was really easy to get to. Absolutely no cooldown, so you could just call it in and then literally get a couple of kills and you've got another one. And honestly, it's just absolutely crazy. And if you're in a lobby where 2 or 3 people are using it and you're playing on your own, there's just nothing you can do. You just get overrun with streaks. You can't protect your own streaks. It's just, yeah. I hate the Air Patrol. I would love to have seen how Cold War would have played out without it. But if you're playing Cold War now, honestly, run this streak because, well, don't run this streak because it kind of ruins the game. But no, run it. It's very decent and it will help you out. At number 3, we've got the Harp, score of 6,000, cooldown of 60 seconds. Obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, the Harp is basically an advanced UAV, you know, orbital VSAT, Blackbird, you know, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, what an incredible streak. Whatever Call of Duty, right? If there's a Harp, an advanced UAV, something like that, it's always a great streak, a good way of going on big kills with weapons. You know, you can predict where people are. It always really helps, you know, your team as well to push up the map, maybe get a bomb down, bring a game back, whatever it might be. These streaks will always be incredible, really good for going for nukes as well. And yeah, not much else to say about the Harp in at 3. At number 2, we've got the War Machine. So the War Machine was a score of 4,000, cooldown period of 60 seconds. So 4,000 was actually a pretty good score to get to. The War Machine was basically like a grenade launcher, very, very powerful. You could easily get kills as long as it was kind of in the rough area of where the player you were standing was you were shooting at. And the only thing that kind of let the War Machine down was the fact that trophy systems blocked it, which could sometimes be annoying, and also spawn protection. So if a couple of players spawned in and you fired your War Machine, they're just staring at you laughing and they shoot you, and as soon as you die, once you've used the War Machine, you lose it, right? So a really powerful streak, one of the best streaks in Cold War, really good for going for nukes. 4,000 score, just kind of let down a little bit by spawn protection and trophy systems. Now, coming in at number 1 and my all-time favorite streak in Black Ops Cold War is the hand cannon. So it was a score of 2,800, cooldown of 90 seconds. What more is there to say about this? This streak is unreal, right? It's a bit like the Annihilator of Black Ops 4. It's basically a pistol, one-shot kill from any distance. Like I said, 2,800 score. There is nothing to stop this streak. Absolutely nothing. There's no spawn protection. If players are spawning in, you're feeding with it. It's honestly unreal. It was a really good way as well. With being 2,800 score, you chuck the hand cannon on, it would get you to your War Machine. If you chucked it on with a Harp, it was like really overpowered. And honestly, the best streak in this game, right, by an absolute mile. And it's a shame that the aerial streaks such as Vetols, choppers and gunships were kind of almost inadequate with the way air patrols worked, but the hand cannon and the War Machine definitely made up for it. So that brings us to the end of the list, guys. A little bit of fun today, I thought, just to do something a bit different. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, please do hit the like button down below and let me know down in the comment section, what would you have moved around? You know, what did you think of the score streak system in Cold War? Do you agree that the air patrol kind of breaks it? And if you're brand new around here and want to find your way back for more, please do consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, guys, I hope everyone's a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.